If you want a decently priced game for 2025 that will last you a long time, I think I've got just one for you. But bear with me because it's a bit of a hard sell. On April 28th, 2025, about 6 months from now, as I'm making this recording, Guild Wars 1 will celebrate its 20th birthday. Personally, that means it's 19 years this Christmas than I first got the game for Christmas, along and sat down at, Christmas Eve after they're opening the gifts, installed it, played it for the first time while listening to American Idiot from Green Day, that I also just got that year. So yeah, Guild Wars 1, it's old, about 20 years old. And back then it was marketed as an MMORPG, although that can be discussed if it really is one or not. But yeah, it's 20 years old. So why am I sitting here telling you that in 2025 you should get a 20-year-old game to play? Well, let's talk about it. So let's begin with presentation. While the graphics are dated, the art style and level design really helps Guild Wars to remain decent looking even 2 decades later. Like, the environments range from serene lush forests like over here, to snow-covered peaks like we are in now, to war-torn no man's lands, to volcanic hellscapes, arid deserts, to sprawling cities where buildings are built on top of each other. Now, the animations are, well, fine. And there is voice acting, which is actually pretty good.
It arrives with no fanfare, no tolling of alarms.
Char are relentless, but we shall hold the wall at all costs.
Yes, my lord.
Now, all of it is working in tandem to really immerse you into these worlds and make it feel, well, more real. And okay, I cannot not gush about the music anymore. Composer Jeremy Soule rightfully gets a lot of credit and praise for his work on The Elder Scrolls, Morrowind, Oblivion, and especially Skyrim. Are amazing soundtracks in their own right, but in my opinion, it is with Guild Wars that Jeremy Soule has done some of his greatest work. From beautiful, serene moments like the song Ashford Abbey, to the powerful main theme, from the Southeast Asia-inspired factions music, to the African-influenced Nightfall, the soundtrack is expansive and, honestly, without fail, amazing. Now, developer ArenaNet is still also masters of world design, creating immaculate vistas both in Guild Wars 2, but also even here back in Guild Wars 1. And look at this gorgeous setup here. Tyria is a world teeming with history, beauty, and dedication. There are few gaming universes out there with a lore so deep it could carry a book, TV, or movie adaptations. Mass Effect is one of them, I think. Elder Scrolls, while regularly retconning its own lore and being a bit all over the place, is also honestly one of them. But Guild Wars' Tyria definitely belongs on that list. In fact, in between the first and the second games, they even wrote and released 3 books, and to expand the lore and the events happening in between the 2 games. Those books are great. I read them. They're amazing. I love them. The world of Tyria in Guild Wars 1 is actually divided on 3 continents, although 2 of them are connected by a large desert. Now, if Tyria is an interesting take on your classical fantasy, Elona is a fantasy world inspired by African cultures. From the savannah to the lush wetlands, Elona is a very different place from Tyria to the north. But far southwest of Elona, Across an ocean lies Kanta, with its heavy Southeast Asian influences, the petrified forest, and the Jade Sea, and the massive Kaineng city, which is a metropolis city built on layers on top of itself. It's another breath of fresh air into the genre. The world is as massive as it is unique. So, you have a world full of lore and stories that feel as real as the big fantasy staples, with great immersion and presentation despite its very old age. Cool. But what about the gameplay? What about the content and the story? Well, let's first talk gameplay. A lot of older games have some really cool mechanics that often doesn't age that great. There's usually a reason as to why a classic mechanic evolves into something new. It's simply better. Guild Wars 1 isn't without the occasional situation where the design is showing its age. The core gameplay loop sits on such solid foundations that I don't know if it's ever can age. Now, I have made a whole video on the skill system itself. It's out there, you can watch it. It's one of my earliest one, so maybe it's not that great, but it's surprisingly good, if I say so myself. And as such, I'll try to be brief. Now, each character has a skill bar with 8 skill slots and a basic attack. Now, you fill these skill bars with a selection of well over 100 skills per class, or profession as this game calls it. Now, there are 10 different professions, and each character has one primary profession and one secondary profession, giving you access to all skills from both. And because after a bit of the game, you can change your second profession pretty much at will when inside of the hub areas, that means you're looking at a skill pool closer to 1,000 rather than the 100 that we mentioned before. So, out of those 1,000 skills, picking the 8 that suits your playstyle and the situation at hand in the instance area you're going into is going to be the challenge. On top of that, you have elite skills, on which you can have a single one of on your skill bar, and there's a lot of options here. Now, couple this with the fact that the game isn't designed for a single solo character, but rather parties of 4, 6, or 8 players or AI-controlled substitutes, and you're looking at a mind-boggling amount of combinations to play with. But that's just it. ArenaNet had one genius idea how to solve the overwhelming nature of that situation. Because apart from slowly introducing you to new skills as you unlock them throughout playing the game, all of the enemies you come across will use the same skill pool and group compositions as you are able to do. And you will learn what works and what doesn't by interacting with it. You'll pick your skills, go into an area and expect that build to work, only to notice that, oh, all of these enemies are really good against this type of skills. And you find a way around it by tweaking your builds and tweaking what characters you bring along and tweaking your strategies. And you go into a different map, and then suddenly you're facing what you took on to combat that. And as such, you go into something else to counter what they have. So facing a group of bandits or afflicted, as I'm running into in this map, isn't a case of fighting 8 simple bandits. It's a case of fighting maybe 1 healer, 2 melee fighters, 3 casters, and 2 range fighters, for example. All using the same combinations of skills as you can, which means you'll learn how to play the game and you'll know what to look out for and how to counter it simply by watching the game throw those things at you. In a way, you're learning by doing, so to speak. And while the game was originally marketed as an MMORPG, and there are MMO-like features in the game, like how all of the cities and outposts are online hubs where you can meet with friends, group with others, or trade and the like, the actual gameplay like this takes place in instanced maps. And in these instanced maps, it's just you and your party. This means that levels can be adjusted by changing the spawns, events, and even more, depending on the quest that you have, making it yours. So for example, all of these quests in Kainei City will affect various maps throughout this area. So while there are MMO-like features in the game is much more of an RPG with co-op and online features than a full-on MMO. And if you play it as such, the fact that there is a low player base, still surprisingly high considering the stage, it's not an issue. Oh, that's an ambush. The game will cap your leveling at level 20, which is honestly reached quite quickly, because the leveling experience is nothing but a long tutorial, to be honest. Once you reach it, the true game, finding the right builds for you, is where the game truly begins. Now let's talk story. Simply put, while the story has some classic tropes here and there, it is an engaging one, well told, and it will take you through the entire world of Tyria and back. The game technically has 3 beginnings, but I'll recommend you play it like this. Start by creating a character in the Prophecy storyline. This is the original beginning, but also first on the slightly weird timeline. After reaching the City of Lion's Arch, you can continue on, traveling over to other regions through a challenging starting mission, or keep going. From here on, also feel free to create characters in the other 2 campaigns, as you'll get to a point where in these where you can travel to Lion's Arch, at which point you're pretty much caught up with the different starting timelines. From here on out, focus on the campaign you like the most, but if you want the story to connect perfectly, I would suggest you do them, the final parts of them in this order: Prophecies, Factions, and Nightfall. And I gotta say, for a game of this age, the voice acting is on point.
Recruit the strongest, the smartest.
Now, once you've completed them all, or at least close enough, finish your exploration of the story by playing Eye of the North, which sort of ends with a nice hint to the story to come in Guild Wars 2. Playing through all 4 stories and a decent chunk of side content is easily going to last you at least 100 hours, if not more. I've played this game for over 3,000 hours at this point, and I still have things left to do. For example, I think this might be the first actual Mesmer character that I have. So yeah, if you want a game that will last you hundreds of hours with deep lore and a lot of amazing content, and a game with a combat mechanic that plays sort of like a real-time Magic the Gathering, in a sense, I mean, that's at least where a lot of the inspiration in the time came from, then yeah, Guild Wars 1 might be, 20 years old at this point, but it's still amazing. Now, if you enjoy this, please get the game, but also, please subscribe to the channel. I'm really close to 1,000 subscribers, and it would be fun to reach that limit. Just for fun. So yeah, why not watch something else? For example, my deep dive on the Guild Wars 1 skill system, or how it's really weird to visit locations that, for example, like this, the Great Northern Wall in Ascalon, in Guild Wars 1, and then again in Guild Wars 2, where it's the same, but so different. Or maybe some of my other stuff. Feel free to look around, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.